very good, John, and some good points there. Hey, Griff, FYI, I tried to call Kevin, and I got, 2 busy signals and an answering machine. So I did my best.
There you are. That's where we stand. Well,
now,
we've got a good program going here. I'm really anxious to hear more from John. I like to listen to his voice.
Yeah, me too. He's got a smooth voice, doesn't he?
It does. It tells good stories too.
Well, John, since I got you here, Doc, let me pose this to you. I'm going to pose you this question, and you run with it. Gulf of Mexico, Agenda 21?
Yes, very much so. It feeds right into the global warming. I have to be careful here how I use my language. Stuff that was going on over in Europe when they had that meeting in Copenhagen. The whole thing with it is to give an excuse. And talking about the guy that wanted to burn the Koran, how many people today can't see that there wasn't something kind of peculiar going on that the government should have done but didn't do that allowed this to occur? That's presuming that the Muslims bombed the World Trade Centers and that his response to that is to burn the Koran. Well, that's playing right into the the matrix of what the power elite want us to believe, or like John King was saying, is we're being manipulated. And Griff, I tell you, we know whenever somebody gets mass media, they can't do it without certain approvals for an agenda.
Right.
It's just it doesn't happen. You've got to have. I mean, if I ran out and called the media, they'd probably call the police or the nut wagon with the white jackets and come and get me. They wouldn't be putting me all over the news and interviewing me.
They most certainly wouldn't. It'd be Toon Bin City for us all if we did that. That's for sure. But from a standpoint, now, we had John Moore on the other night, and John has done a lot of work in, especially in researching global warming and what the true story is behind global warming. And he gave a pretty interesting presentation. I don't know if you've seen it, Doc, but it's global warming, what the government isn't telling you. And there's a certain portion of it where he brings up some photos of the Gulf Stream and that the Gulf Stream was slowing. Now, this was in 2008 when he did it. And he recently just put out a picture that he got from one of his sources showing that the Gulf Stream had actually stopped. And he attributes a lot of the things that we're seeing right now, say like in Russia, in Pakistan, and he says they're probably going to see, Great Britain's probably going to see a colder winter because they don't have that warm water circulating out by them. Do you think that was a byproduct of a disaster that they kind of knew what was going on, but they kind of let it happen conveniently, or do you really think that that's an event that advances their agenda and everything was done methodically and intentionally? What do you think?
Well, let me put it this way. I happen to be looking at that fnmoc.navy.mil photograph or satellite imagery from the Navy of the temperatures on the surface water. And yes, up there around Cape Hatteras in North Carolina, the Gulf Stream has literally the temperature, I should say, has stopped. It stops right there on the northern edge. Yes, it's gone, and now you're looking at temperatures around Scotland, England, Ireland, even up there off the coast of Western Europe is cold. It's not where it should be. I think that this is an easily researched agenda that they could have put forward because, see, even 911 wasn't just one thing. I mean, we had gold stolen. We had records on nefarious agendas the government was involved with, destroyed in Building 7. We had people killed. We had insurance policies held by a firm that Michelle Obama's wife, Michelle, was working at, that held insurance policies on all those people in the World Trade Center, and that was their law firm that were the people that got the money and dealt with all the proceeds from the death of all those people in the World Trade Center. There are multiple facets and fronts, and yes, I think this wasn't an accident. Now that's, and we can all talk about the why and if, but no, I don't think this was accidental. I think it was on purpose. We've got, even if it wasn't, we've got us an agenda that they've taken, well, we have an event, I should say, that they have taken full advantage of. And Griff's right, there are millions of people that are sick. Now, when 911 happened, there are lots of people that have got sick. Now, across my desk has come because of the business that I'm in. Some of it I can tell you about, some of it I can't. Right. I have seen case after case after case that has gone before the court for people that are sick from it. I've taken care of people that were in 911, and they were toxic and sick from toxins that almost looked like nuclear problems, and I had to detoxify them. And it took almost a year to work with that person, this one particular I'm talking about. Now, this goes clear back to Oklahoma City bombing, too, because I worked on the survivor that was closest to the explosions in the Oklahoma City bombing, and that walked out of the debris and still had lingering issues that he came to me for. Each time there's these mysterious elements that seem to show up at toxic levels in these people's body when you test for them. It's very interesting. That can't be an accident. Now, what I'd also like to say is, my background's in this field, but I'll unzip this a little bit more for you, Griff. Okay. I was working with Berkeley University, where NASA had brought back something called Project Stardust. Project Stardust was a satellite that went out in space to collect dust. Well, I got an opportunity to work on that, examine the space particles in something called Stardust at home. And they don't tell you because they keep everything, so to speak, compartmentalized. But what they were really after was to find out how much iridium and rhodium, heavy metals there was in space and how dense it was getting, because we're getting closer and closer to the galactic center line where most of the debris is. And as they do, that means the sun's going to heat up. So things are warming up. And it's not because of the footprint of man and the carbon problems that we produce and all the gas and fumes that come out of our cars. It has nothing to do with the people on this planet warming this planet up. It has to do with something much more cosmic, much bigger than anything that we could ever even control. And but we do have the capability with some of our technology, to create earthquakes and to communicate with submarines no matter where they're at. But this Gulf rig was easy to examine, find out exactly where it is. And now, of course, that's not the only rig in the Gulf now that's had an explosion. We've had one just west of that, and it's really mucking up the salinity of the water in that Gulf Stream. Stopped. I shouldn't say the current hasn't so much, but the temperature from the current, which is so critical to Western Europe, is stopped. It's not going to make it. It's not going to warm them up. That is a horrid thing. And we're on the precipice of, like you were saying, they've stopped John Moore said this too. They've stopped delivery of wheat from Russia. They've reneged on their deals. The Ukraine people, the Romanian has most of their wheat underwater. And so internationally, wheat sales and wheat for the world is at a standstill, and it's going to just get nothing but worse.
Well, let's talk about. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and they think that they can fix everything with this agenda, which supposedly is in the process of being implemented, or is in world implementation stages now, and it isn't working. So it's not there to help us. It's a planned takeover of the world. It's all it is.
Now, these Gulf residents down there, I know that one of our sister shows here on the Intel Hub Radio Network is Project Gulf Impact, and they've been doing a lot of research down in the Gulf, and they actually sent some blood samples off to the lab to be tested, and they tested positive for chemicals. And right now, while we're talking, I'm trying to research what the heck they are, but I can tell you that this stuff is accumulating in their bloodstream, and causing some major problems. And now, what do you think the long-term impact of this is going to be on people? Do you kind of see this, Doc, as something akin to, say, 9/11 after, the towers fell and they said the air is safe to breathe? Was it really safe to breathe? No, it wasn't safe to breathe. And that's the reason why they have a fund set up for first responders now that all have mesothelioma and respiratory illnesses because it wasn't safe to breathe. And what about like the Exxon Valdez? All the people that suffered from being exposed to dispersants and crude oil for so long. So, I mean, what do you think the long-term effects are going to be for all these people that live in the Gulf region?
Well, it's been 9 years since 9/11, and across my desk, because of some of the other companies that I have, across my desk are information still of court cases where they're going like you talk with first responders, dipping into that fund, and they're sick and they can't get well. It's going to go on from now on till all of them are dead. That's what's going to happen. Now, in this region of the world, this Corexit is a poison, but I'm going to kind of go into this a little bit different than maybe you've ever heard. Now, some of that information that you've already heard, you probably know, is the fact that some of this kind of chemical you can find in Windex for cleaning the windows, and Simply Green or Simple Green that cleans a general purpose cleaner. So we've been exposed to this kind of stuff, but not at the levels and not in the area of our body. That's why you're told, do this in a well-ventilated area and so forth. Yeah, we've been exposed to it, but not in the quantities that's going on. And if you can take those kind of cleaners and clean the bugs off the counter, everybody says, well, what's going on with these chemicals in the ocean? Well, here's what's going on. In the training that I've had, which was European biological medicine, we have this understanding that's outside the existing medical model that microbes can morph. They can change. And, when I first heard this, I didn't believe it either, because here I am sitting there with a well-known research and practitioner, medical director of a hospital in Switzerland, telling me that viruses turn into bacteria and bacteria turn into fungus and so forth, or fungi. And you sit there and you go, oh, there's no way. Well, there was this fellow by the name of Dr. Enderlin who researched that for 40 years and has 6,000 volumes of information in Germany that proves that is the case. And what's going on in the Gulf is we have bacteria, and it can morph for three reasons. It can morph because it's attacked by a virus. Say a bacteria can get infiltrated by a virus. The virus can change the genetics of the bacteria so that it morphs into something very deadly. Another way that it can change is through chemicals. Chemicals can then get inside the bacteria and genetically change it through chemistry. And that's exactly what's going on right now with Corexit. It's chemically changing the bacteria in the Gulf, and we really don't know what we're going to come up with, except that we know that they can survive change, and some of them are going to become very, very deadly. I mean, I'm talking about Ebola deadly. Now, Ebola is a virus, but it can become deadly, and bacteria can